In his room, this boy, who we'll call Game Master, reaches for his setup, happy to be alone like the introvert king he is. With one click, he decides school life can stay in the trash because games are all he needs. Sitting in front of the screen, he admits his happiest moments are just solo gaming time, meaning he has no friends. Smirking in his chair, he tells himself this is where he gets to be the main character for once. He daydreams about saving progress and even cheating his way to the top, because of course he does. Then his face tightens like Kira, and he's about to declare the world was made for him specifically. A wild, flashy attack scene plays out, hyping up the idea that the player is the only one who matters. He shrugs off the dramatic stuff and basically says, fine, let's start already. The stream goes live and the screen glitches like it's nervous about what he's about to do. A notification pops up and his channel name flashes like the internet is watching closely. Chat starts roasting him with backhanded comments and he grits his teeth because they're not wrong. A viewer tosses him a small donation and he lights up like he just got a rare drop. He's ready to thank the donor, feeling warm and proud for about 2 seconds. Then a massive donation hits and the number is so big it basically slaps him across the face. Game Master freezes in shock, staring at the screen like his brain just blue screened. Leaning in, he grabs the monitor like it owes him answers, totally panicking. More chat messages flood in and the big donor tells him to check his email. Hearing that, Game Master turns with a confused look, wondering what kind of request comes with that cash. He hopes he's not going to ask him for feet pictures. He's wrong. Game Master clicks the new message, stepping right into the obvious trap. The email explains the sender is a dev with a game nobody can clear, and they want him to test it quiet. One line stands out. No beta tester has ever beaten it, which instantly pokes his ego. He repeats the idea out loud, tasting the challenge like it's a dare. Grinning, Game Master decides that if he clears it, even someone ordinary like him can feel special. An install prompt appears, and he stares at it like it's a door to a new life. With zero hesitation, he clicks yes, because self-preservation was never his strong point. The game finishes installing and launches, sealing the deal. A grand story dump appears about kingdoms burning and gods returning, basically the usual fantasy chaos. Floating in a sky-like space, Game Master notes the title and complains the graphics aren't as amazing as he hoped. A name input pops up, and he admits it's impressive for a one-person dev. He types in a name with quick confidence, like this is already his world. The game accepts it and welcomes him to a new continent, and the adventure finally begins. His character spawns in a forest clearing, and he looks around like a tourist who forgot the map. Watching from his desk, Game Master calls it standard and assumes the controls will be simple. A figure steps into view, and he pauses, sensing the first real interaction. An old village chief greets him with a formal question, and it feels way too real for a normal game. Back in reality, Game Master notices there are no dialogue buttons and starts sweating a little. The screen shows his name tag. Wondering why there are no dialogue choices, he tries typing anyway, half refusing to believe the game expects real answers. Instead of being polite, he blurts out a threat for gold, because he's speedrunning being hated. He swallows nervously, realizing he just talked trash to an old man with a stick. The chief instantly smacks him down, and his vision fades like he got one-shot by a tutorial boss. The same beating hits again in his memory, just to remind him how fast arrogance gets punished. A death screen appears, and he stares at his own body like, wow, that escalated for real. Clutching himself in his chair, he realizes he can actually talk to NPCs. The restart prompt waits, like the game is smirking at him. Annoyed, Game Master clicks to restart, acting tough even though he's shook. The chief's greeting repeats, giving him a second chance to not be an idiot. This time he throws on puppy eyes and begs for food, laying it on thick like a bad drama actor. The chief buys it and tells him to follow, and he acts smug like he outplayed a grandmaster. They head inside a simple house and he stays quiet, watching the chief's every move. The chief offers him a drink and rest, and our guy says thanks like he's suddenly well-mannered. He chugs the drink without a second thought, because suspicion is not in his build. A sharp pain hits, and his eye widens as the delayed regret finally arrives. The game announces he's been poisoned, and he slumps like he just lost to the world's pettiest trap. Another death screen appears, and his character collapses in the chair while the cup rolls away like a villain. Back in his room, he starts plotting, refusing to accept he got farmed by Grandpa twice. He yanks out the internet cable, thinking he can stop the dev from controlling the NPCs. Laughing like a cartoon genius, he brags that offline mode means no more harassments from the dev. In-game, the chief glitches and his text turns into nonsense, like the world just got corrupted. The next death message is brutal, saying he got punished hard for speaking nonsense, and the game offers restart again. He slams his mouse down, rage quitting like that will fix anything. Sweating, he wonders how the game still works without internet, realizing this isn't some normal program. The name DEA flashes in his mind, and he suspects the donor and the dev might be the same person. He reasons it could be a whole team using one name, clinging to denial for comfort. A clock shows it's crazy late and he's shocked at how time vanished. He decides to stop for the day and hit save, like he's totally in control of his life. He smiles in the dark, already addicted, which is honestly the scariest part. His eye opens with a spark, and he admits this is finally getting fun. Morning comes, and he keeps dreaming about becoming special, even if it's only through that game. With a click, he jumps back in, chasing that thrill again. He loads his save, ready to keep fighting the system like it's personal. Another click confirms he's committed, because turning back is for sane people. Headphones on, Game Master sinks deeper, fully invested like he's binge-watching his own downfall. He hits load again, replaying the loop like a stubborn protagonist who never learns. A sudden time skip hits, and 10 years pass in what feels like a blink. Now older, he's at an office job, and a co-worker hands him finished files while he plays polite. Game Master thanks the girl. Deep inside, he's thinking how repetitive his real life stayed, even after all that time. A wall clock ticks on, reminding him this is the kind of world where nothing exciting happens. His co-worker, Suyeon, says good work, and he replies casually like they're just passing time. Suddenly, she hesitates, looking like she wants to say more but can't find the courage. In the next moment, Suyeon asks him out for fried chicken and beer. Maybe Netflix and chill if things go right. Suyeon looks up with quiet hope, waiting for the answer she really wants. But our guy suddenly apologizes and says he has to rush home, choosing the game over real people again. Her face drops, and the disappointment lands like a soft punch. If that were you, I'm sure you would say yes. So while you're daydreaming, click that like button and do subscribe to the channel if you're loving the story so far. Back to the rejection, Game Master tells Suyeon to head home too and walks off, completely unaware he's going to regret it later once he realized. Suyeon mutters that he brushed her off again. And yeah, he really did. Night falls over the city, and his obsession pulls him back like a bad habit. At home, Game Master vows to end things tonight and pulls up Hero's Destiny like it's his true calling. His hand is groping the mouse, instead of Suyeon's hands, starting another session in the only world that listens to him. The city sky hangs quiet as he slips away from reality again. A congratulations screen appears, and Game Master realizes he actually cleared the game and made history. We see his room covered in notes and plans, proof he's been living for this moment. He pumps his fist and shouts that he finally cleared it, celebrating like he won a championship. For a second, his smile stays frozen, like he's waiting for the happiness to really hit. The grin fades into something empty, because victory doesn't fix his life. 10 years of chasing that virtual greatness flash by, and he admits he only wanted to be special somewhere. Looking down at his desk, he sees that nothing in his real life changed at all. He forces a weak smile and says he feels empty, like the credits rolled and left him behind. In the game world, his character stands in open fields, and he feels like he's living two lives at once. A character card introduces Gale Krakow, the Black Prince, one of the big figures from that world. Another card shows Casare Lavaro, the Cardinal. Then Celestina Urin appears, the witch behind the curtains, smiling like she knows every secret. He remembers how the characters felt unique and real, like he actually belonged among them. Rubbing his eyes, he sighs that this is really it, like his story ends in a quiet room. A new message appears, offering a fresh adventure with a warning that he can't return until he clears it. His heart pounds as he wonders if it's a bonus stage or a sequel, already hooked again. Still chasing that thrill, he grips the mouse and decides he wants one more rush. He clicks yes, claiming he has no choice, even though this is the most him decision ever. The screen warps and he doubles over as if something is pulling him through the monitor. A voice welcomes him as a disciple, and his chest burns like he's being rewritten. He wakes in a grand hall, confused and in pain, swearing he was just in his room a second ago. A stern older man says he's lucky to be alive, acting like this is a normal morning lecture. A bright blue eye snaps open, revealing the new body he's in. The man addresses him as young Master Callix, and just like that, the real isekai begins. In a blink, Game Master, now named Callix, wakes up and sees a scary older man reflected in his eye, while his brain screams, "Who even is that guy?" Standing over the bed, the man just studies him. While the knight, Russell, thinks the healer never warned him about memory loss, Callix panics harder, realizing he doesn't even know where he is. Even worse, he can understand the man's words, even though it doesn't feel like his own language. Russell introduces himself and acts polite, but Callix is still confused because his mouth and ears aren't matching his old life rules. Lying there sweaty and weak, he tries to focus on the bigger problem hiding in his chest. The pain hits like a truck, and Callix grabs his chest, and Russell calls him young master like this is totally normal. After calming down, Russell apologizes for pushing him and says he'll be fine soon. With Callix curled up in pain, Russell explains the potion woke up dulled senses, so the hurt is part of recovery. He also warns that healing will take longer, then prepares to leave for the night. The door shuts, and the room gets quiet except for Callix's rough breathing and the candle's soft glow. Left alone, he just lies there, trying not to freak out again. The candle flickers, then dies out, and smoke curls up like the room itself is sighing. Darkness takes over, sealing Callix in with his thoughts. After a long breath, Callix finally steadies himself and drags his body up, bare feet hitting the floor. Each step is slow and shaky, like he's learning how to be human again. He faces a tall mirror and admits his body feels different. And yeah, it really does not look like a 30-year-old office worker anymore. Staring at the face of a teenage boy, he tries to connect the dots. With sweat on his brow, he realizes the most basic thing is missing: his own name. The guy can remember decades of life, but his name is just gone. He leans close to the mirror, demanding to know who he is, and then a glowing blue window suddenly pops up in front of him. The shock hits him so hard, he freezes mid-breath. Reading the floating screen, he finds a name and details that don't belong in real life, and he recognizes it as the status window from Hero's Destiny. Now he's sure he's inside that story world, and that's both hype and terrifying. A memory flashes of his old life watching the story on a computer, like this is a recap of how he got here. Seeing that, he accepts it because denial is pointless when reality is already doing anime magic. The setting clicks in his head as the Eren continent, and his mind goes full alarm mode. He forces himself to breathe and calm down, doing that panic routine in his head. Back in the room, he checks his hand like it might explain everything. But the chest wound throbs again and stops him cold. Even standing up is a bad idea right now. He collapses to the floor trembling, realizing the pain is too real to be a dream. With that confirmed, he has to treat this like survival, not fantasy. Crawling toward the bed, he repeats the name from the status window, trying to make it stick. Like a stressed kid memorizing for a test, he keeps mumbling it until it feels almost natural. The moment he thinks about the status window again, it flashes back into view, and he figures out it appears when he focuses on it. That also means he's the only one who can see it, which is great for secrets. A close look confirms the name and age on the screen, and Callix's face lights up with greedy hope. If he's a noble, he's got money and protection, and that beats starting as a random villager any day. He hypes himself up, saying just surviving in this world is hard, then rereads the screen like it's a safety manual. The name Callix Shjasin and noble status sink in deeper. Seeing his family name matches the house name, he realizes he's directly from the Count's line, and his luck meter finally feels positive. Right then, someone knocks, cutting off his little celebration. Startled, he flinches and panics about what to say, because he has no clue how this kid normally acts. He forces himself to stay calm, but his heartbeat is loud enough to be its own sound effect. He drills the identity into his head, telling himself he's Callix, son of the Count, and he can't slip up. Outside the door, a maid stands waiting, and her posture says she's not here to play around. The maid announces it's time for his medicine, sounding professional and polite. Callix tells her to bring it in, trying his best to sound like a noble and not a confused tourist. She steps into the room, and Callix watches her carefully, catching her in the reflection of his eye as she approaches. Even while acting calm, he's studying her like she might be a hidden boss. The maid kneels smoothly and sets the tray down like this is daily routine. She states she brought his medicine, and her calm is almost suspiciously perfect. Looking up, she urges him to drink before it cools, smiling in that sweet servant way. Callix stares at her, tempted to ask her name, but he stops himself at the last second. In his head, he scolds himself for nearly asking something weird that could expose him. Then his status window flashes again, and he realizes he can learn things without asking directly. He plays it off and focuses on her, and the blue screen reveals her as Lila, a maid tied to House Koshelin, not his own house. That detail hits like a red flag waving right in his face. Callix repeats her name in his mind, then zooms in on the affiliation line because it makes no sense. If she's his maid, why is she from another house? He calls it weird and starts connecting clues, because nobles don't just borrow staff for fun. His eye narrows as he notices there's more, and none of it feels friendly. Callix is surprised that Lila has serious combat ability, way beyond a normal maid, like she could fold most guards without trying. That makes her job title look like a costume, and her steady gaze suddenly feels heavier. Putting it together, he realizes the injured son of the Count is being watched by a strong servant from a different house, which screams political mess. Even while thinking he shouldn't drink it, he gulps anyway, because his body is weak and the pressure is real. Lila asks if everything is okay and encourages him to go ahead, staying politely pushy. Callix awkwardly tells her to set it down somewhere, trying to slow things down without looking suspicious. Instead of backing off, Lila beams and insists he must drink it now, like she's flipping the switch from maid mode to handler mode. Callix grips the cup, sweating, realizing she's basically forcing him. Pain spikes in his chest and the cup slips, splashing medicine as it drops, turning his oops into a perfect excuse. Lila watches the spill with a flat face, not even shocked, which is honestly more scary than yelling. Callix thinks that should solve it, since the medicine is wasted, but then he sees Lila's expression shift. Her eyes sharpen, like she's decided he's annoying now. The cup spins through the air, and before it can even hit the floor, Lila launches forward in a blur. In one smooth motion, she reaches out like she's about to rewrite physics. She flips and snatches the cup mid-air with insane control, like this is a warm-up, not a save. Landing with that cold stare, she looks less like a maid and more like a trained enforcer. Callix stares in pure shock, realizing he is trapped in a room with someone way stronger than him who wants him to drink. His face tightens as the danger finally becomes clear, and the panic is no longer just in his head. Lila moves like a blur and catches the spilled bowl mid-disaster, saving the mess with scary speed. Holding the bowl steady, Lila stays calm while Callix freaks out inside, realizing his little stunt got red instantly. Even as Callix groans and tries to act hurt, Lila just stands there like this is her normal Tuesday. Callix keeps shaking and peeking for a reaction, but Lila's face stays locked in that polite, unreadable mode. With the tray set down clean, she points out the medicine is still fine, which is not what Callix wanted to hear. Watching him sulk on the bed, Lila is confused while Callix spirals, convinced the worst always happens to him. Callix stands up and declares in his mind that the medicine must be poison. Trying to save face, he decides to stall and let things cool down first, because panic is his main talent. Before he can even breathe, Lila catches him, startled by how close she is and how fast she moved again. Lila checks if he's okay, and Callix pretends he is, amazed she bought the act while he sweats bullets. Seeing a status screen pop up, Callix realizes he can finally investigate Lila. The window shows Lila's details and her connection to a Viscount's house, and Callix starts asking who sent her. As Lila supports him, Callix pieces together his family mess, including a half-brother from the second wife. Doing the math, he realizes the half-brother is older, and the second wife's family name matches Lila's. Callix connects the dots and remembers his stepmother is tied to assassin training, making Lila feel way more dangerous. The thought hits harder. Lila was sent by his stepmother, meaning her sweet maid job might be a cover story. In his head, Callix imagines getting off-screen and his half-brother taking the crown, which basically turns this into a survival race. Instead of calming down, Callix gets excited and treats this like a challenge, because of course he does. He thanks Lila and says he feels better, then awkwardly starts fishing for info about his mother. Callix asks about his mother with a forced smile, trying to sound casual while plotting in real time. Lila flinches at the question, her eyes shifting like she just heard a trigger word. She explains the Countess worries about his self-harm and asked him to never do it again, which makes Callix go quiet. Callix admits to himself that the original him really did try to do that, and the room suddenly feels heavier. He figures the injury was a chest stab, and that means the medicine situation is connected to that attempt. Lila says he promised not to worry the Countess again, basically handing him the noble guilt chain. From above, Callix dismisses her and tells her to leave, acting like he's in control when he's not. Lila apologizes, her eyes sharpen as she reminds him he still hasn't taken the medicine. Callix gets chills, realizing she's not going anywhere until he drinks, and his confidence evaporates. He tries to stop her from hovering, But in his head, he's already imagining her forcing it down his throat. Lila stands her ground, and Callix thinks refusing is pointless since she's an elite assassin. Callix panics harder, remembering he's mentally older but physically a fragile teen, which is a tragic combo. He considers screaming for help, then realizes that would just get him stabbed faster, so he drops the idea. In full doom mode, he's convinced any wrong move means instant death, and he can practically taste the fear. Lila turns with the tray, and Callix accepts he might have to drink the so-called medicine just to survive the moment. Right before giving in, he pauses, forcing himself to think, because blindly drinking spells his doom. Staring at the cup, he wonders why they'd use poison instead of a quick stab, and that detail starts to matter. Watching Lila's calm smile, Callix decides they're hiding the crime as an accident, and this poison is the cover. He claims he knows the poison, meaning he's played this story before and remembers the nasty name attached to it. He reveals its slowly impending death as Lila offers to help him take it, smiling like a villain in maid clothes. Callix clenches his fist and remembers one rule from his years playing this world: expect the worst. A warning message flashes in his mind, telling him to suspect everyone and be prepared, and his eye hardens with resolve. He worries what Lila will do if he keeps delaying, because she's got that patient hunter vibe. Somehow, Callix starts enjoying the danger, like he's addicted to drama and needs professional help. When Lila offers assistance, he says he can drink it himself, trying to take back control of the moment. He snatches the cup in one swift move, beating her reflexes for once, and the room freezes. Callix gulps it down fast, committing to the worst plan with the confidence of a guy who has no plan. As he keeps drinking, Lila watches with glowing eyes, way too calm for someone who just served poison. A status alert confirms he's poisoned by slowly impending death, and Callix internally screams that he was right. He forces himself to think of any way to survive, searching for a person or object that could save him. A memory hits. Russell once said without their best potions, Callix wouldn't have lived to see sunrise. Another flashback shows Russell introducing himself, and the name clicks like a key in Callix's head. Callix gasps, realizing Russell is connected to the cure and probably the only adult here with real answers. He orders Lila to fetch Russell, trying to sound like a lord while his body is already weakening. When Lila asks what's wrong, Callix snaps at her, calling her lowly because stress turns him into a brat. Lila apologizes and looks shaken, but she still holds the tray like she's waiting for the next command. Callix shouts for her to get out, basically rage-quitting the conversation instead of handling it like a normal human. As she bows, Callix thinks about how insanely expensive Russell's potion was, and why someone would waste it on him. Lila finally leaves through the door, and Callix notes Russell used a priceless item without hesitation. That makes Callix suspect Russell isn't trying to harm him, and he wonders if Lila is truly gone. With no time left, Callix grabs at drawers and anything nearby, hunting for an antidote like a desperate thief. He gags and drools, the poison kicking in hard, and his breathing turns ragged. Callix coughs up blood, and the room spins because this poison is not playing around. Panting, he tells himself this isn't enough and he has to find it. He pushes forward, repeating that there's always a solution, even while his body starts to fail. After searching another spot, he realizes it's not there, but convinces himself the answer has to be somewhere. He coughs again and curses the empty drawers, frustration rising as his strength drains. A new alert says his eyelids are getting heavy, and Callix realizes he's about to pass out. He staggers across the room, shouting for the cure, but his legs wobble like noodles. Callix tumbles into shelves, crashing into a mess and swearing as the world tilts sideways. He rummages through scattered papers and books, still asking where it is, even as his focus fades. Another warning repeats that his eyelids are heavy, and he staggers again, barely staying upright. His body finally drops to the floor with a hard thud, ending the search in the saddest way. Lying there panting, Callix wonders if dying will restart everything, or if this is the real end. His eye trembles, fighting sleep, refusing to close even though the poison is winning. The world dims further, and his eye goes unfocused, like he's slipping under a dark wave. In the reflection of his eye, he spots something small on the floor and thinks to himself to wait. With his face still down, he notices a tiny vial near the furniture and realizes he finally found something. Callix wakes up face first on the floor. Through a narrow gap, light spills into the messy room, and he finds the antidote for the poison. Dragging himself across the wood floor, he crawls like a zombie toward a weird jar sitting nearby. With shaking hands, he grabs the jar and stares at it, confused about what it even is. He pops the lid open and the container trembles in his grip like it's cursed or something. Not trusting it, he leans in and sniffs, already regretting every life choice that led to this moment. The smell nukes his nose and he basically gags, realizing it reeks like rotten milk. Seeing the label, he figures out it's rotten goat's milk, which is just evil in a bottle. While lying there, he remembers the rule that yogurt can cure the slow death thing, but this feels like a loophole scam. He debates if rotten goat's milk even counts as yogurt, but time's running out and the man's sweating bullets. A warning message hits again, telling him his eyelids are getting heavy, and he forces himself to stay awake. By now it's the third warning, and he knows he won't last much longer if he doesn't act. Gritting his teeth, he curses Lila in his head, promising revenge for poisoning him. With pure desperation, he gulps the nasty stuff down, like he's trying to speedrun survival. Everything goes dark for a second, and he lets out a weak groan, unsure if he just saved himself or signed his death note. Few hours later, Russell appears over him, checking if he's okay, looking stern like a tired dad who's seen too much. Callix wakes in bed confused, wondering if time rewound or if he's stuck in some reset loop. From the bedside, Russell questions what Callix is talking about, clearly not buying the nonsense. Russell then explodes about the wrecked room, roasting Callix for acting like a raging toddler. He also demands to know why Callix was sleeping on the floor, while Callix quietly celebrates that he survived. Still shaken, Callix swears he never wants to feel that close-to-death fear again. He hardens his resolve and decides he'll do whatever it takes to stay alive from now on. For the moment, he plays it calm, watching Russell and thinking ahead instead of panicking again. Using his special info view, Callix tries to check Russell's details like he's scanning a suspicious NPC. Russell yells for attention, but the info panel reveals he's Russell Nigel, the deputy count, which makes things click. Callix realizes Russell took over because the count died without naming a successor, so this house is in a messy power spot. Seeing Russell is an old-school soldier type, Callix decides he can probably trust him, at least a little. Instead of calling him by name, Callix tests him by addressing him as Deputy Count, watching for a reaction. Russell asks what's going on, while Callix starts explaining he's going to be honest about something. Russell's face stays stone cold, the kind of look that makes you sit up straight, even if you're the boss. From outside the room, the tense silence hangs in the air, like the whole castle is listening in. Callix turns away, thinking fast, trying to decide how much to reveal without getting himself clapped. Russell stands there steady, waiting, the patient type who can outlast anyone in an argument. After a pause, Russell admits there's no proof of poisoning, meaning Callix can't just point fingers. Hearing that, Callix fumes, realizing Russell used an expensive potion on him for reasons that aren't kindness. He reminds himself Russell wasn't on his side, just following protocol like a loyal robot in a uniform. Russell explains his duty is to serve both Callix and his brother Gramwine, since they're both in the line for succession. Callix clenches the sheets, annoyed that everything needs evidence and witnesses like some boring court drama. With a deep frown, he complains that this means he has to keep drinking the medicine his rival sends him. Russell notes Callix seems to have lost part of his memory, then brings up the house's current situation. Callix learns House Chicken is broke enough to affect the budget, and he forces himself to stay polite about it. Russell adds that Lila is helping them here instead of serving House Kashalin, hinting she's more important than she looks. Callix snaps back that if Russell wants proof, he'll get it, because he's done being treated like a clueless kid. He thinks the poisoner probably believes he's dead, which means this is the perfect time to bait a mistake. Russell lets that slide for now, surprised but willing to hear him out. With a sharp grin, Callix says he has a request, the kind that sounds like trouble dressed as manners. Russell studies him closely, sensing something changed in Callix, like the boy finally powered on his brain. 4 hours later at Count Jason's castle, the night air feels tense, like a stealth mission is about to start. A shadowy figure leaps across rooftops, moving clean and fast over the stone buildings. Boots land softly on a ledge, showing whoever this is knows how to move without making noise. A hooded woman exhales in relief, cloaked and masked like she's trying way too hard to look mysterious. Peeking out, she spots armored guards with torches, confirming the place is on high alert. From behind the wall, the woman, Lila, notes security has been strengthened, but her eyes stay calm and focused. A close look at her eyes shows zero fear, just the cold confidence of someone who plans crimes for fun. She targets a round burrowed opening in the stone wall, likely a secret way in or out. In a blur, she drops inside and lands low, her cloak swirling like a dramatic anime entrance. Noticing no guards near the room she wants, she heads straight for the double doors. She cracks the door open slowly, scanning the inside like she owns the place. The bedroom is dark and quiet, with a big bed in the middle, making it look like the target is still sleeping. She approaches the bed and stares at the lump under the blanket, ready to confirm the target. In her mind, she assures herself the special poison would have ended him without pain, like she's proud of her homework. Reaching into her cloak, she pulls out a paper, preparing the next part of her little scheme. She slides the paper onto the desk and opens a drawer, moving fast and practiced, like this isn't her first midnight visit. She grabs a stamp box and sets it up, going full office worker mode in the middle of a crime scene. With a firm press, Lila stamps the document, sealing whatever fake message or order she's planting. Thinking the job is done, she turns to leave, but a blade flashes near her and her eyes go wide. The same moment stretches again, her escape cut off as the threat stays right at her neck. Frozen, she recognizes the voice behind her, and the shock hits harder than the knife itself. Still staring ahead, she swallows in fear, realizing the person she thought was dead is right there, ready to ruin her whole plan. A blade flashes right up under Lila's chin, and she's sweating like she just got caught cheating. Gritting her teeth, Lila snaps that it's already too late, acting brave even though her eyes are shaking. The room feels cold as the bed becomes the proof, and the news drops that Callix is dead, and Gramwine is the only heir left. Russell stands there like a wall in a red uniform, while Lila glares back, still holding her knife like it can fix this mess. Lila calls Russell out for picking a side, and the silence answers her before anyone else does. A chill runs through Lila's eye, right as Callix steps in, smiling like he's enjoying the chaos way too much. Hearing him calmly explain poisoning like it's daily gossip, Lila stiffens, while Callix admits he already knows all that. With that smug look, Callix warns that getting caught has harsh consequences, and Lila's grip tightens as if she's about to swing for real. Lila clicks her tongue and attacks, but Russell casually blocks the strike with a loud clash like he's swatting a fly. Not wasting a second, Lila tries another slash, and Russell just grabs her mid-move, shutting it down hard. She gets slammed and twisted, bones popping like bad luck, and a fist pulls back with zero mercy. Russell drives a brutal hit into her, while Callix watches and thinks the gap between types of fighters is huge. That purple killing aura around Russell says it all. And Callix clears his throat, explaining no idiot would leave evidence and witnesses behind. Lila pants on the floor as Callix spells out that trying to kill a noble means execution, even if the killer is noble too. Callix walks to the desk and points out he's got evidence ready, then steps closer like he's about to add the final piece. Leaning in, he calls Lila the witness, and her eyes wobble as her strength finally starts to drop. Lila suddenly slumps out cold, and even Callix looks confused, while Russell checks her like a professional. "It's official," she fainted, and a hand presses against her back to see what's going on. A strange glowing whirlpool forms under that touch, and Callix realizes it's a mana hole used to figure out someone's combat class. Russell reports she doesn't have mana breathing, meaning she's basically just a well-trained elite soldier, not some magic monster. Russell's face shifts for the first time, while Callix studies him and wonders if the old man already knew all of this. Callix remembers asking Russell to lie in wait, and Russell thinks this young master is not normal at all. Still suspicious, Russell suggests tying Lila up to question her, and the next thing you know, she's strapped to a chair by the fire like it's story time from hell. Callix pours something onto Lila's bruised arm and wipes her face, treating her like a problem he owns now. As he leans close, Lila slowly wakes, tears and sweat clinging to her lashes. She jolts upright in the chair, and Callix starts calmly describing the poison called slowly impending death and how it slows breathing over hours. He adds that people like it because it looks like peaceful sleep, then admits traces in his body would make it seem like he chose to end himself. Looking down at her like she's a rookie, Callix says if Lila used instant poison and truly planned to die with him, she wouldn't have failed, then grabs her chin and demands the real reason. Lila can barely answer through his grip, while Russell watches from the side, all stiff and ready to follow orders. Callix coldly tells her she didn't actually want to die, and Lila finally spits out that she was serving Countess Stella. Callix orders Russell to open her mouth because he's going to feed her something, and Lila's terrified eyes lock on him like she sees the worst ending coming. A dark little pill sits in Callix's hand, and in one rough move it gets tossed straight into Lila's open mouth. Callix tells Russell to make her swallow it, and Lila thrashes in the chair, shaking like a scared kid trying to run from detention. The ropes and chair rattle as Russell forces it, and Lila swallows with a gag, realizing she just lost control of the whole game. Lila snaps awake tied to a chair, already yelling like she just got hit with a debuff she didn't order. Seeing her wrists bound, she demands to know what she was fed, because her body feels totally wrong. Callix calmly admits he made her take poison too, calling it fair payback for what she did. Caught off guard, Lila repeats the word poison like her brain is lagging hard. With a creepy story drop, the poison gets compared to Cetus's puppet, and Lila panics, calling it impossible while still stuck in that chair. The same nightmare image hangs over her as she keeps denying it, but the fear is already winning. Zooming in on Callix's eye, he explains you can buy anything with enough money, then starts listing the poison's ingredients like a smug chef. When he says the key part is white radish, Lila goes quiet, realizing he's not bluffing at all. Russell suddenly reacts from the side, like even he didn't expect the kid to know that much. Callix stays cool and just wonders how this is surprising, like he didn't just drop a murder recipe. Lila glares up and demands to know how he knows this stuff because it doesn't match his soft-looking face. Callix says he'll let Lila go if she returns to her master and reports the assassination succeeded. Dropping to the floor, he waits for her answer while Lila sits there like she still thinks she has a choice. Callix flatly tells her she'll do it because she wants to live, and that line hits harder than any sword swing. Lila groans and tries to resist, but the poison talk has her sweating through the tough girl act. Callix taps his temple and says the only antidote that will work for her is basically in his head. With no mercy, he warns her not to gamble with her life, and Lila stiffens like her timer just started. Her body twitches as the poison begins to kick, and the chair suddenly feels like a coffin with armrests. Breathing hard, Lila bends forward while Callix calmly asks what she's going to say. A close-up shows her eyes shaking, and you can almost hear her pride cracking. Russell watches, waiting, while Lila can barely force words out. Finally breaking, Lila agrees and demands they untie her, sounding more like a hostage than an assassin. Callix teases her attitude, acting like he's her tutor and she just failed the manners lesson. Lila's pride dies in real time as she begs to be untied, because poison will humble anyone fast. She keeps pleading while trembling in the chair, now full misery like the story is roasting her on purpose. Callix suddenly blushes and realizes the rotten goat's milk is doing its weird job on him too, which is just unfair comedy timing. Turns out, Lila is close to hitting the toilet. Turning serious again, Callix tells Russell to untie Lila, and Russell freezes like he's been asked to pet a snake. Russell argues she's an assassin who tried to end Callix, because he's the only adult in the room acting like one. Callix claims Lila is an important witness and says they should at least protect her dignity, which sounds noble until you remember everything else. Russell repeats dignity with a confused face, like that word doesn't belong in this situation at all. Meanwhile, Lila just screams to hurry up and untie her because she's done suffering for this kid's speech practice. Tears well up as she thinks she's going to die at this rate, and the tough assassin mask fully melts. A bright scene cut hits with her begging, like the universe itself is tired of her drama. Now on the floor in her cloak, Lila says she'll report the assassination as a success, and Callix answers with a cold little good. The door slams as Callix thinks he needs someone who can control the knights if he wants to trick the person who hired Lila. Callix starts thinking the best person for that role is someone obvious, and he turns with a serious face. Russell calls him young master and asks how he got all that knowledge because this sudden brain upgrade is suspicious. Callix dodges by saying he read it in a book, and even he knows that excuse sounds weak. Russell shuts it down, saying anyone who published a book like that would get hanged. And it wouldn't be lying around this castle either. In his thoughts, Callix admits he can't say he came from another world, so he's stuck with one risky option. Callix asks Russell to remember the dagger he used, then hints it was meant to stab himself, which is insanely unhinged logic. Russell says he remembers but can't see what it has to do with anything, watching the kid like he's a puzzle box with teeth. Callix explains the dagger was a keepsake from his mother and had mysterious powers that he somehow awakened. Russell presses him, asking if he's certain, still not ready to swallow this story. In his head, Callix notes Russell still doesn't believe him, then admits the power unlock was literally stabbing himself in the heart. Russell calls it fascinating but says the world would know about such a treasure, basically calling Cap in polite knight language. Callix closes his eyes, thinking fast, because he needs proof that doesn't sound like a fairy tale. Opening his eyes, he asks if Russell has heard of a certain legendary dagger. When he names Kriya's dagger, Callix looks intense, like he's finally playing his trump card. Russell explodes in shock, realizing the old dagger from the late Viscountess might actually be that famous weapon. Callix notices Russell is finally convinced, and you can feel the trust meter move for the first time. Russell says it explains Callix's sudden intelligence, while Callix admits he's never even seen that dagger before and just winged it. Russell calls him young master again, and Callix tilts his head like he's waiting for the real question. Russell leans in and asks if Callix told anyone else, and Callix says Russell is the first person he's shared it with. Russell calms down and says he understands, but you can tell his soldier brain is still trying to keep order. Then Russell asks what Callix thinks about Lila's testimony, and Callix plays dumb to hear him out. Russell recalls Lila saying Count Colin was followed everywhere, and he looks uneasy saying it out loud. Callix points out that a strong knight almost reaching a high class got swatted by a petty monster, along with every knight with him, which sounds way too clean. Russell begs Callix not to believe that nonsense, but even he suspects Callix wants him to take action. Callix thinks he must be fair about the succession and says questioning the Count's death is reasonable, but there's no proof yet. A hand grips tight as Russell refuses, trying to hold the line. Russell declares his creed is to never get involved in politics, like that's going to stop this train now. Russell tries to speak carefully, but Callix's stare is already sharpening. Callix suddenly shouts why his father died, and the kid's grief finally breaks through the scheming. He demands to know who assassinated him and swears revenge once the culprit is found, while Russell stands there realizing this just became a real war. With a cold smile, Callix asks how he should avenge his father, and that's the moment you know this castle is about to catch fire. Hearing Gramwine might become the next count, Callix explodes and says they can't quit now, even if the plan is brutal. Callix's face hardens, the kind of look that says sleep is cancelled until revenge. Zooming in on his eye, Callix questions if it's really noble for a knight to serve the family that assassinated his old master. That thought hits Russell like a cold slap, and the room feels heavier as he stands there in silence. Russell still says nothing, his tight mouth basically screaming he's fighting a whole war in his head. Then Russell turns toward Callix, moving like he already made the choice and won't take it back. Dropping to one knee, Russell swears loyalty to Callix, pledging himself like a living shield with a sword for a spine. Callix is shocked and calls him out by name, but you can tell he's also relieved to not be alone anymore. Russell warns that he's throwing away the creed he lived by for nearly 60 years, and his glare says he means every word. In Callix's mind, it clicks that a top-tier knight just joined his side, basically the strongest card in the county. Russell's presence feels like a lone tiger finally choosing a pack, and Callix tells him to stand up and move forward. Trying to be humble, Callix says he's just a titleless boy and a swordmaster shouldn't bow to him. Russell shuts that down, promising to make Callix strong, and Callix quickly changes the topic before training turns into a death march. Callix reveals the Countess tried to poison him and even left evidence and a witness, meaning they can crush her whole faction. With a sharp grin, Callix declares this is the beginning of their revenge. Russell asks what Callix wants him to do next, fully locked in like a loyal anime mentor who's done being nice. Callix smirks and says the first step is simple, and that smile is pure trouble. The scene shifts as time passes, the quiet outside contrasting with the storm they're about to unleash. Morning comes, and the grand hall is packed for a formal meeting where the nobles are ready to gossip like it's their job. Stella sits confidently and notes everyone is present, acting like she owns the place because she kind of thinks she does. Whispers spread through the hall as people wonder why the Countess is in the Count's seat and what happened during the night. Stella starts her speech, calmly bringing up what happened to Callix the night before, like she's reading the weather. She claims someone tried to kill Callix again with a slow-acting poison, and the room instantly fills with uneasy murmurs. One old noble reacts, recognizing the poison type, looking way too pleased for a guy discussing the crime. Others add that Callix is probably dead because these people have the emotional warmth of a stone wall. The crowd reasons that if the eldest son is gone, factions don't matter anymore, and they talk about making smart choices. Stella smirks, thinking the only real obstacle is gone, and her victory lap is practically starting. Her ally nods along, sure that Gramwine will become the next count, like it's already stamped and sealed. More murmurs rise as people ask who takes the seat next, even though they all know where this is going. Someone suggests the Countess rules temporarily, and you can feel the room preparing to bow to her. But then a voice cuts in from the back, asking if everyone is ready. A sharp glance reveals Callix is here, and someone calls for Sir Russell like they just saw a ghost with good posture. Russell steps forward with a heavy clank, basically saying he'll follow Callix even into hell, no questions asked. Russell appears in full armor like a final boss escort, announcing that Callix's command is his wish, and the hall goes dead quiet. Stella and Gramwine sit up front, chatting a second ago, but now their faces tighten as the vibe flips. The doors swing wide, and the sound alone feels like a verdict being delivered. Callix marches down the aisle toward the front, and the nobles stare like their favorite rumor just got cancelled. Footsteps pound closer, steady and confident, making the whole room tense up. Stella tries to say his name, but her voice catches because her plan just tripped over a living problem. Callix steps into the light with Russell behind him, and people openly gasp because the supposed dead guy is standing right there. Stella's fancy fan slips from her hand, hitting the floor like her pride just did the same. Sweating now, she blurts out confusion because her script didn't include the hero returning in episode 2. Pointing straight at her, Callix says that seat isn't for someone like her, and the roast lands clean. Stella tries to play the mother card, telling him to address her properly. Up close, she forces a little chuckle, the kind people do when they're scared but still want to look classy. Callix explains he was poisoned but survived by throwing it up fast, basically ruining her little slow death plan. Stella's face stiffens as Callix calls her impatient, and she snaps back, acting offended like she's the victim here. Callix just puffs out air like he's bored, because her fake outrage isn't even a good performance. Stella raises her voice, insisting she was never acknowledged as his mother, but still demanding respect, while Callix looks done with her drama. Russell steps in and reminds everyone this is a sacred public hall, meaning words have weight and lies have consequences. Callix smiles and says he wonders if she'll stay confident once the truth comes out, and Stella's patience starts cracking. In her head, Stella panics about why he's so cocky, yet she still pretends she has no idea what he's talking about. Callix responds coldly, basically saying he's not buying her act for even 1 second. With a sharp clap of his hands, Callix signals the next move, like a director calling the witness on stage. A bound wrist comes into view, revealing the witness is tied up and dragged in, meaning this is not a friendly testimony. Russell announces they'll start by hearing the witness, and the hall leans in like it's peak plot twist time. Nobles whisper about who the woman is as she's led forward, clearly not someone from their fancy circles. Stella breaks down internally, insisting this can't be true, because a witness means her whole throne game is collapsing. Callix orders her to state her name, keeping it simple and deadly serious. The woman hesitates, glancing up with fear in her eyes as she starts to answer. From the front, Gramwine watches, looking shaken, like he just realized his mum's plan might splash onto him too. At last, the witness says her name is Lila, and the room freezes on that reveal. Stella's eye widens in pure shock, the kind that happens when the evidence walks in wearing your doom. Realizing who Lila is, Stella explodes in rage, wondering what that woman is doing here and knowing she's in serious trouble. Lila is dragged in, calmly admitting she's a top agent from House Koshalin's shadow unit. Callix tilts his head, acting surprised that a whole shadow unit is even real. With dead eyes, Lila explains it's a task force of battle-trained orphans who survive brutal training and get picked as the best. Seeing her hands tied behind her back, it's clear this confession isn't a friendly chat anymore. When asked about her cover, Lila says she worked as Countess Stella's maid, and Stella starts shaking like a busted kettle. From the back of the hall, Callix watches the nobles panic while Stella looks ready to explode. With a sharp glance, Callix asks if Stella knew Lila's real identity. Lowering her head, Lila answers yes without even flinching. Stella snaps and screams that the whole thing is a setup, loud enough to wake the castle ghosts. One official freaks out, saying Lila worked there for years and calling undercover work a crime. As the table erupts, someone demands they report House Koshalin, while another admits they lacked proof until now. A sweaty old officer insists they finally have a witness, even though he looks like he's about to faint. The old officer calls on Viscount Russell to speak, begging him not to trust a lowly maid. Russell stands behind Callix like a shield wall, looking cold and unmoved by the noise. Russell shuts it down, stating Lila is a criminal who confessed to being a spy sent by another noble house. Callix gives a tiny smug look, like he's enjoying the chaos a bit too much. The old officer tries to protest, but Callix basically says they decide after hearing Lila out. One angry guy yells at the old officer to stop, as if this is his first time in a courtroom. The old officer whips around, shocked he's being talked down to like a kid. From above, the hall is tense as they insist the witness must be heard right now. The old officer trembles and addresses Stella with a nervous, shaky respect. Stella asks what Lila did as an undercover maid, and Lila calmly says she sent gathered info every month. Callix presses further, asking what kind of information she passed along. Still kneeling, Lila says it was mostly money records, like the territory's funds and the chief financial officer's ledger. Continuing, she adds the late Count Collins' schedule and travel plans were included too. Hearing this, Russell visibly twitches because that's not just gossip, that's a whole crime buffet. The room stares in disbelief, realizing this spy wasn't playing around at all. A boot turns sharply, signaling Callix is about to push the questioning even harder. Callix asks her most recent mission, and Lila reveals it was to trick him into drinking a slow-acting poison as medicine. Without pausing, she says she also planted a forged will to make it look like he took his own life. Callix's face goes cold as he asks what the outcome of that mission was. Lila admits Callix took the poison, but Russell caught her sneaking back into the bedroom afterward. The moment she says that led to her arrest, Stella lunges forward and tries to shut her up by force. Stella stomps in a rage, screaming for evidence while people grab at her to calm her down. Still yelling that she's being framed, Stella hears someone quietly laugh and question what evidence even means here. Callix steps toward Russell, politely asking him to present what he's got. Russell slams down the forged will, declaring it was made to look like Callix wrote it. Gesturing to the crowd, Russell says Lila tried to place it in Callix's bedroom the night before he captured her. Russell explains the evidence is tied to a magic earth scroll that can show the memories of anyone who touches it. From a wide view of the bench, everyone stiffens because that kind of magic leaves no room for excuses. The old officer announces that using this magic will reveal who forged the will. Inside his own head, the old officer panics and vows to keep the evidence from leaving the hall at any cost. That thought turns darker fast, as he even considers silencing everyone if needed. Callix's eye narrows, catching the vibe that something ugly is about to happen. Watching the old officer, Callix thinks these moves are way too obvious for anyone trying to look innocent. With a quick flick of his arm, Callix makes a decisive motion like he's calling the next play. Callix orders someone to enter, throwing the room into instant alarm. The old officer jolts in shock, not expecting Callix to act this boldly. A line of armored knights storms in, their shields clunking like a marching wall of bad news. As the knights surround the bench, the officials panic and ask what is even going on. One official snaps that this is a sacred hall, and the castle guards, not the Knight Order, handle security. Stella is shoved into place between armored bodies, her face twisting as she realizes control is slipping. From a high view, the whole hall looks trapped inside a steel cage, with Callix at the center like a calm villain. The old officer demands Russell explain himself, his fear mixing with anger. Russell says he already checked the scroll and learned a shocking truth, so he posted knights to prevent chaos and asks for cooperation. Even as he repeats that he checked the scroll already, the message is clear. Russell came prepared, and nobody gets to run. The officials accuse Russell of staging a coup by bringing knights into the Grand Hall. Gramwine trembles and calls Stella mother, looking like a kid who just saw his world collapse. In her head, Stella realizes the Knight Order stayed neutral for years, so if they moved now, they must have solid proof. Sweating under the purple aura of panic, Stella thinks that if the Knights side with Callix, she's basically finished. With a sweet smile, Callix asks Russell what happens to nobles who try to end their relatives under the kingdom's law. A noose drops into the frame as the answer hits hard. They are hanged. Stella clings to Gramwine and screams that he knows nothing, claiming she planned everything alone. She yells at Callix that blood or not, she's still his mother, trying to guilt-trip her way out like a stepmom. Callix turns his face aside as she begs him to believe her, and his silence says more than words. Lila glares from the side, looking annoyed that Stella is hijacking the whole mess. Callix suddenly smiles and asks Lila if Stella is telling the truth. Lila's eye sharpens as she starts explaining what happened when she received orders from the Countess. She states that young Master Gramwine was also in the room when those orders were given. A cruel little smirk forms on Stella's lips like she's about to flip the story again. But the next instant, her eyes widen in pure panic as she realizes Lila just aimed at her weak spot. Stella screams that it's a lie, clinging to Gramwine as he looks stunned and scared. Callix calmly admits internally it is a lie, then basically shrugs like Stella's excuse still doesn't matter. As guards hold someone down in the background, the cold point lands. If you try assassination, you don't get to cry about fairness later. Stella is forced down, tears and rage mixing as the hall shifts from debate to judgment. Gramwine stares ahead in shock, realizing they've reached the point of no return. Callix stands under a dark, ornate backdrop, looking satisfied as the fox hunt hits its climax and the trap finally snaps shut. In the middle of the court, Callix stands there calm as ever, while Stella gets shoved face first to the floor. A loud impact hits, and Callix turns as the whole room reacts to the sudden mess in front of him. Gramwine drops to his hands and knees, sweating hard, then crawls over like his pride just got deleted. With that same cold look, Callix walks forward in slow, scary steps, making the distance feel like a countdown. Gramwine is forced down even lower, and the court starts murmuring because nobody expected a noble to fold this badly. The officials panic and demand to know what Gramwine is doing, while Callix stands over him like the judge and the final boss at once. Caught desperate, Gramwine begs to save his mother, and Stella loses it, realizing he's about to say something that can't be taken back. The guards slam Stella down at the table and order her to sit, while people whisper that a count's son kneeling like this is beyond wild. Even some spectators think this is too cruel, but Callix reads the room and knows the blame is starting to slide onto him. Callix presses Gramwine, basically asking if this public show was the plan, and he grits his teeth as the pressure hits. After all, the public opinion is turning against him. Then Callix pats him on the shoulder and agrees to listen, and Gramwine's face lights up in shocked hope. Callix lays out the deal. Confess and the execution can come off the table, and Gramwine's eyes shake because the trap is obvious, but the bait is real. With a sharp stare, Callix warns that whatever is said here can't be undone. And Gramwine stutters because his mouth wants to run, but his brain is screaming. Stella shouts for him to stop, then turns on Callix too, acting like she still has power while literally pinned down. The court snaps at her for daring to speak after trying to kill Callix, and an old noble rages because she just ruined their lucky turn. Stella curses Callix, calling him arrogant, and he doesn't even blink, just points ahead while Russell watches him closely from behind. Russell orders the knights to seize the criminal, and Stella gets dragged away, still yelling her name like that will unlock immunity. Gramwine looks toward his mother in panic, but a gag gets clamped on her mouth, shutting her down in the most brutal way possible. Even Gramwine gets squeezed into silence by the situation, and the court resets as Callix prepares to make him answer properly. Callix finally asks the real question about the poisoning attempt, and Gramwine's lips twitch because the truth is already cornered. Gramwine admits it, and Callix calmly notes he had no choice since backing out now would destroy the pity he worked so hard to farm. Callix pushes again, asking if this confession was part of Gramwine's plan too, while Russell keeps a steady, unreadable face. Callix tries to stop the court from hiding the scroll's contents just to protect their noble reputation. But the officials announce a reduced sentence anyway. Then the punishment drops. Gramwine must shut down his own mana hole, and the guy freezes like he just got hit with the worst possible punishment. The story reminds us this kingdom runs on strict ranks, and mana is the ticket to knighthood, so losing it is basically getting erased from society. The rule is hammered in again. Shutting down your mana hole is a social death sentence, meaning you're alive but treated like you don't exist. Gramwine whirls around in panic, while Stella thrashes through the gag, realizing this choice could expose her crimes and get her executed. Gramwine's face cracks under the weight of it, and the image in his head is clear. His mother dies if the truth comes out. Even so, he steels himself to stop that fate at all costs, while the court reminds him that for a noble losing mana is the same as death. After a shaky breath, he starts to rise, still clinging to the one promise he thinks Callix will keep. Gramwine begs Callix to honor the deal, and Russell answers with a clean approval because the machine of judgment is already rolling. The scroll is handed over, and Gramwine bites it down, forcing himself to accept the ritual like he's signing away his whole future with his teeth. He lifts his hand to his chest, and golden mana starts swirling as he begins shutting the gate inside him, shaking like his body knows he's making a dumb choice. Stella pleads for him to stop because it can't be reversed, but Gramwine keeps struggling through the pain as the seal rips deeper. The mana vortex whooshes around Gramwine in a blinding spiral, and Callix watches with sharp focus, looking ready for whatever this confession is really about. Caught in the middle of the court, Gramwine forces his busted mana core to spin one last time, and that glowing swirl finally settles down. Seeing the light fade, the officials at the table go stiff, and the whole room realizes Gramwine's mana hole has been shut down. Gramwine wipes sweat and thinks he pulled it off, but then a cold voice basically tells him he has no idea how the world really works. Trying to act cute, Gramwine tells his mother not to be sad and rambles about wanting to be an artist, and Stella's jaw clenches as she snaps his name like a curse. With no warning, Stella bites down and cracks the gag chain, then yanks hard enough to make it snap free like she's done being polite. Losing it, Stella screams that she'll ruin Callix forever, while Callix calmly explains that without mana, the best someone like Lila can ever be is a low-tier knight. That same comparison hits Lila like a slap. Basically, Gramwine can be weaker than Lila for the rest of his life. Knowing that, Stella breaks down as her son reaches toward her, calling her mother. Meanwhile, Callix does this whole guilt dance, telling himself Gramwine is just a game character, then shakes it off so hard even Russell looks confused and checks if the kid is okay. Even after that inner pep talk, Callix suddenly gasps, like he just noticed how close the blade edge of politics is to his neck. Not wanting to hesitate, Callix tells Russell to finish the sentencing, and the camera pulls back to show the whole court trapped in his tempo. Russell announces Stella and Gramwine will be locked away in the annex until the assassination investigation ends, and both of them are banned from contacting anyone outside. Dragged off by knights, Stella and Gramwine are marched toward the heavy doors, while Callix turns back with that calm face that always means trouble. Next up, the chief financial officer Gidris gets called out, and Russell roars that the old leaker is stripped of rank, thrown in prison, and investigated. Gidris fights the guards like a grandpa trying to start a raid, and one knight grits his teeth, already done with this man's drama. Still yelling about dirty hands, Gidris gets smacked and then dragged away anyway, because authority doesn't work when you're getting hauled like luggage. Callix watches with a stressed little smile, while the officials start whispering, scared they're next. As the murmurs spread, people notice Russell is openly following Callix's orders, and that basically screams the Knight Order is backing the young lord. From there, the room decides the succession fight is over, and Callix throws a sharp glance that says he wants everyone to remember who ended it. With that half smirk, Callix makes it clear the display was a warning, and a trembling official calls for the guard captain like he's summoning a rescue team. Russell slams down another ruling, putting the remaining suspects on probation and confining them at home, leaving the table of officials looking absolutely cooked. Off to the side, Garrett bows and blames himself for failing to control the situation, even offering to resign like a tired dad turning in his keys. Callix thinks Garrett is competent and respected, then Russell refuses the resignation, making it clear the admin chief is still needed. Garrett hands over a list of suspected officers and asks to suspend them, and Callix tells him to recruit replacements so the work keeps moving. Noticing Callix's shift, Russell steps closer and calls him Young Master, like he's checking if the boss is about to drop another nuke. Garrett reports most officers will be investigated except 4. Then Callix says they should appoint a new finance chief, and Callix's eyes go cold at the money talk. Garrett begs for mercy on minor crimes, but Callix refuses, insisting the Treasury needs people he can trust completely. Garrett gulps, and Callix straight up wonders if being generous would make people grateful or just cocky enough to test him again. When Garrett tries to push back, Callix cuts him off and says he's already decided, and the vibe turns dark like the room just lost sunlight. Garrett gets chills, realizing this Callix feels nothing like the fragile kid he used to know, and the story flashes back to that softer, unsure version. Back in the present, the officials whisper that even Garrett, the head of administration, looks powerless in front of Callix right now. Callix grins and thinks that with this, almost all authority in House Station is basically under his command. And yeah, the same smug thought hits again because he's feeling himself. Then Callix locks in with that glowing stare and activates his weird info-reading power, and a character panel pops up showing Garrett Olsen's details like the world just got scanned. More data layers keep flashing over Garrett's face, and suddenly multiple profiles appear at once, like Callix is sorting the whole court into neat little folders. Leaning into that villain protag energy, Callix smiles wide and decides this whole power trip is getting fun.